As a mono green connoisseur, when I found this seemingly competitive mono green list, I knew I had to share it with you all and put it through its paces. Hi, it's McFluffy52 here. Today we are playing Mythic Mike's mono green stompy list. Now when I saw this deck list, I originally thought there is no way this deck is actually good, so I decided to put it through to the test for myself, and so I've played 50 games with this deck to try and get a reasonable sample of just how good it is. Us content creators, we often convey our opinions on how competitive decks are based on a limited number of games, so for this video, I tried to get some more empirical results by playing so many games. That being said, even 50 games is not the best sample size, but I can only play so many games. Decks and their performance are always going to be heavily matchup and meta dependent, so I can really only speak to how good this deck is in the current meta and the matchups I played against. Let's dive into the results and then we'll play some games. So as you can see, I'm 29 and 21 with the deck, which is a 58% win rate, which is pretty good results when you compare it to the other mono green lists present on Untap. And notably for the red matchups here, the Boros aggro and the mono red aggro have a positive win rate, which is pretty encouraging. Now I want to say overall, this seems to be one of the best mono green lists I've run into, but it is still mono green. Green is just kind of a bad color in standard. I say this because I kind of want to caution and say there will still be feel bads and blowout losses, but if we just look through quickly the Untap lists, even with the broadish search terms, 100 games and full lists here, there's only one mono green deck list with a positive win rate, and it only has 120 games. And this is, I guess this is only bronze to platinum because I don't have an Untapped premium or an affiliate account, but yeah, green, not the best color, but this definitely is one of the best green deck lists. So let's hop in some games and see how we can do on the ranked ladder. Subscribe to not miss out on future videos, and yeah, this hand looks like a keep. Now, what I want to talk about why I think this deck is pretty good is one of the notable things is in the opener here. Valley Mightcaller, this is a really strong one drop, and Mythic Mike did an excellent job of putting together a deck that synergizes really well with it, because it is a one drop with trample, but whenever you have a frog, rabbit, raccoon, squirrel enter the battlefield, you get to put a counter on it. So for instance, play Keen-Eyed Curator, it will get a counter, and then we're playing two other one drops. Sunshower Druid here also is we're playing a lot of raccoons, frogs, and rabbits, so it works well. That's what I'm trying to say. But the combination of all these kind of potent one drops means that this deck can actually end the game in a bit of a short order, which is very kind of important if you want to get underneath sweeper decks. And notably, Haywire Mite here, it might look like a bit of a strange card to be playing, but it works really good into mono red and Boros here, because you can actually hold it up as a blocker. If the opponent monstrous rages the attacker, you can pay the 1 green, sacrifice it, remove the monstrous roll token. It will no longer, their attacker should hopefully no longer have trample. You gain 2 life, and you fizzle the attack. So that's one of the strong things. Simian Simulacrum, 3-drop in the deck. I guess I really didn't talk about the deck much, but I just wanted to hop into the games. I'll try and talk about it while we're playing here, but it looks like we're getting pretty blown out by mono red, which had a fair amount of removal, but if we can find our 3rd land drop, I think we can recover. There we go. Play the Simian Simulacrum. Sunshower Druid is actually also pretty nice in the red matchup, because you just have this kind of chump blocker. Sunshower Druid is a nice chump blocker. Do I want to put the counters on it? I think so. We can kind of try and trade with the Simulacrum, which has Unearth. I used to really love this deck this card in green decks because the Unearth and its ETB is just very, very nice. Opponent has the double hired claw, which is a little unfortunate. Might actually double block here and see if we can get it to die. Yeah, I don't think we mind the Simian dying. This will force their hand to try and pump the Hard Claw. I could make it more difficult, but then we don't have the Haywire Mite to fizzle a Monstrous Rage roll token, which is something I think we want. Maybe we just force them to deal with that. Yeah. Only 1 damage isn't too bad. Now, if I go in with the Simian, I do make this a 4/6 blocker, which is pretty crazy. Though, I might just play the Scrapshooter. I think the matches against Mono Red are very kind of strange because you kind of end up in a lot of like standoffs against your opponent. You just kind of sit there until you can find something to break the board stall, and then go from there. But we have the mana to kind of use the Haywire Mite. Alright, so if they Monstrous Rage, still have enough mana to trigger their or pay for their Hard Claw, it will go up to a 2/4, and then if they Monstrous Rage, or sorry, it'll go up to a 3/4, and then if they Monstrous Rage, it'll go up to a 6/5. So can't do that. I think this is probably just the safest. Okay, here's the Monstrous Rage. We can fizzle the Trample. Which is that worth? Probably. And then Simian Simulacrum can pump up our Scrapshooter even bigger. I've been trying to play this deck to the best of my ability for all the 50 games, but when I'm recording and yapping, it can be hard to both think and play at the same time. Or like speak, think, and play all at the same time. Alright, Monstrous or Manifold Mouse. Opponent is at the mercy of their top decks. I could go in with both the Simulacrum and the... But then they could swing in, because this buffs Lizards, Otters, Mouse. Okay, so probably hold off for a turn, play the Scrapshooter and the Haywire Mite. But I guess I could swing in with the Scrapshooter now. So we'll have 1 big blocker, which is pretty good. The Hard Claw will become a 4/5. 1-drops. They're so good. They are so good. On the top deck's a land, which is good for us. They pump that up. They can give it double strike. We can block with the Mite. Or we can just kill it. I think we take the kill on it. Then we can block 4 damage here, which doesn't seem too bad. Or we could double block the Hard Claw and get rid of it. But we're also like looking at near like lethal crackback. Maybe we just do this. We're gonna go up to 16. Actually, have just lethal. Because put counters on the Simian. It's a 4/3 with haste from the grave, and then we swing in with 2 other 4/4s, and they can only block 1. GG, that is a good showing for the first game. Alright. Opponent goes first. That's not good to see. Notably, one of the things when I was looking at the stats for this deck that I noticed is that this deck seems to have a very heavy play draw skew in terms of like win rate. On the play, 74%. On the draw, 35%. It can be a big, it seemingly is a big determining factor, but again, only so many games to go by. This hand seems okay. Pawpatch Recruit is one of the, you know, like I was talking about the one drop Valley Mightcaller being a strong one drop. Pawpatch Recruit is another kind of, I guess, all-star in the deck. If you're playing green, like a green based deck, Pawpatch Recruit definitely is a worthy consideration. Oh gosh, is it red? If we're into red, maybe a Haywire Mite start off, just because if they kill it, we'll get some mana back. Okay, it's Gruul, but it looks like Reanimator. Maybe it's Jund. Funny enough, I ran into I don't know if you all are familiar with Swayze. Is another content creator. I ran into him when I was playing this deck. I got absolutely stomped, unfortunately, while I was playing, but it was a funny encounter that I got. Well, we'll play the Keen-Eyed Curator because it can deal with any kind of reanimation. That is like one of the strong suits of this deck as well. We have the Haywire Mite that can deal with artifacts, enchantments, as well as the Scrapshooter. You have Graveyard Hate in Keen-Eyed Curator, and the what is his name? Scavenging Ooze. Scooze. Back in standard. Alright, I will not obscure whatever the opponent's doing here. It looks like, I wonder what the opponent's cooking. It's a 4-color deck. It is a 4-color deck. Now, one of the strong suits about Pawpatch Recruit is that at 3 mana, you can also offspring it and you get 2 creatures, and then that doubles up the effects of ability. We might be running into a sweeper. Here's one thing that maybe I should be concerned about, but we'll offspring Pawpatch Recruit regardless, because hopefully they are not playing sweepers. Sweepers are a huge blowout for this deck, but that is like one of the things when you're talking about like meta dependence of a deck. I found I didn't run into a ton of sweeper decks, but I did earlier today. I played some games yesterday with this deck, and then I played some games this morning and this evening, and I feel like different people play different decks at different times. Oh yeah, we tapped out. Oops. that does stop the whole we're gonna hate on reanimation. Different people play different decks at different times, and that meta changes frequently. So it feels like sometimes, alright, well, is there any way we can deal with the Gore Claw here? I think we just offspring another Pawpatch Recruit and try and stop the opponent from reanimating another thing. The opponent might just hard cast it at this point. No attacks. Okay, so this is very awkward. This deck, I feel like Mythic Mike mentions this in the video. It's very good against certain things, but other things, or like some of the mainstays of the meta, but when you play against other decks. I'm doing a great job of explaining things. Words are hard. When you play against some more of the fringe meta decks, you can run into some issues. Alright, we'll do this and then we'll just swing in for all. It's not really like much of a solution, but it means that if they do block, they do trade. Because we need to start killing them. If the opponent casts something big here, we're gonna have a problem. Though we don't have anything to stop them from reanimating, but they don't have anything to discard at the moment. Like, they don't have any discard outlets unless they have one in the hand. Alright, here's the big Gishath. Oh. I wonder if... Well... We ought to block Gishath to try and reduce the number of hits they might have. If you're unfamiliar with Gishath, when it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. You put any number of dinosaur creature cards from among them onto the battlefield and the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. Opponent whiffed. Opponent whiffed. And that means we get to win on the crackback. What do they hit? My, we're back approaching numbered Mythic, it looks like here, which is nice. I played a jank try and win on turn 2 combo with Omniscience. I played like 30 games with the deck. I had like a 20% win rate. And went from like 96% Mythic all the way down to like 85%, so... We're climbing back up with this deck, which is impressive. But yeah, I was talking about how Mythic Mike mentions in his video, which I will link in the description. I was going to shout him out again at the end of the video, but he mentions in his video that this deck pretty well teched against some of the like major meta decks, but if you have some of the more fringe or like tier 1.5 tier 2 decks and you run into them, they can potentially just like hate you out completely, which is a little upsetting. But I think the problem is the standard meta is probably even a bit more diverse than Mike might mention in his video, but overall, it looks like the opponent here is Squirming Emergence. We see Sultai colors and self-mill. Right. What does that mean for us? I think we'll just play the Simulacrum. Put the counters on this, because it's trample. Swing in with both. Also, if we diversify which creatures have counters, means they can only chump block one. Yeah, that's the right move. Next turn we can Feral Encounter. I'm actually a big fan of this card, but I think this deck makes particularly good use of it, because you really need cheap creatures that you care about for this to be worth it, because it is 2 mana. You get to look at top 5 cards of your library. You can exile a creature from among them and cast it this turn, and then at the beginning of combat you have to cast this in your first main phase. If you want to get this trigger, you can have one of your creatures bite an opponent's creature, meaning that it deals damage equal to its power. We'll do some searching here. Scooze seems pretty good. Did they have any creatures in their graveyard? Yes, they have Valgavoth. That's not good. Well, we'll get the Scooze. It's not a flawless answer to it, but we will have Feral Encounter deal with this. Also love the art for this one. Giant werewolf, and you have Red Riding Hood or something. Majesty Gathering Red Riding Hood. Alright, if the opponent doesn't have a, what is that, 4 mana Wrath that cares about permanents in your graveyard? If they don't have that, we're in pretty good shape. If they do have that, things get pretty ugly. We do have the 4/4 Haster with the Simian Simulacrum with Unearth, but that's not good. It's has Descend on it. Gives -X/-X for the number of permanents in their graveyard. How many permanents do they got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. They're gonna bounce something. They're targeting that. We'll put the counter on the Simulacrum. There you go. Pawpatch Recruit value. This card, it's pretty good, but at the same time, it drives me a little insane because sometimes it just feels like it's a 1-mana 2/1 with trample, which, don't get me wrong, is not bad. It's just sometimes you kind of just have a small 1/1. I mean 1-drop. All right, let's see if we can keep up this win streak. The stars seem to have aligned for this video. Trying to pronounce things clearly because I tend to mumble, especially if, you know, I'm here in my room playing a game by myself. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it would make sense to enunciate clearly. But yeah, I was playing this deck earlier this morning and I went 7-7 with it, which I started out the first, how many games is this? 1, 2, 3, 7 games. I started out 2-5. So that had me a little bit worried. I was like, okay, we're falling apart here. Opponent on Rakdos sack, probably. We see red, black, and a Hopeless Nightmare, so that's an enchantment they can sack. We played it in a standard event this past Saturday, so go to the channel and check that out if you're interested, because yeah, we tried to see how competitive it was in a standard event. We do standard events every Saturday, or at least that's what I'm trying to do here. I think we just play a raccoon and trigger our Valley Mightcaller and put a big body on the battlefield. Opponent, if it's similar to the deck that we played in the standard event, they don't have a ton of removal besides the Torch the Towers that the deck plays and the Final Vengeance, which Final Vengeance, 1 mana black, they have to sacrifice an artifact, or they have to sacrifice a creature or enchantment, and then they can exile target creature. It's a sorcery, and then Torch the Tower. Bargain, and it deals 3 damage if you bargain. And it also exiles, which is a little unfortunate. We have Simulacrum, or the Simian Simulacrum, which is nice. Opponent scrying 2 and then scrying 1. They send it to the bottom. Alright, 3/3 going in. We can make it a 4/4 if we want to try and dodge future Torch the Towers with the Sunshower Druid. 1 mana, enters, put a counter, and you gain 1 life. 0/2. This is actually pretty good against mono red in the sense that you play it out, it's a 1/3, and you gain a life. Oh, Pact. Okay, that is not what we want to see, quite frankly. Alright. Put counter on one of our creatures. Pawpatch Recruit. Alright, so they're gonna make us discard. Well, they're probably gonna actually kill one of the creatures, because it can deal 4 damage to any target and you gain 4 life. We didn't play a Pact deck. So little less experienced in how to play against Demonic Pact, but I don't think it's that crazy different. Alright, we'll put the power onto the Sunshower Druid. It doesn't have trample, but I figure if we don't put it on the Pawpatch Recruits, if they try and get rid of the Pawpatch Recruits because they hate the ability, then we can put that power that we put on the Sunshower, or we get to put more power on other things. Like, we don't lose the power that we put on the recruits themselves. We got them down to 7 life. We have a 4/4 haste, or a 4/3 haster in a grave. That is a frog with a big butt. 1/3, and it's going to be a 2/4. I have in my notes to try out a green toughness matters deck because of Sunshower Druid. There is also like a 2-drop that works pretty well, and then there's a 4-drop like 06 turtle that makes your creatures deal damage equal to their toughness. Oh, opponent seemingly timed out. I think the best option is to put the counters on this token here, because then we're gonna have 2 power, 3 power, 2 power, 2 power, 4 power, so spread it out as much as possible. Opponent can activate the Restless Vents to chump block, so I imagine if they're deliberating this much, that might not be what they're planning to do. So they could block like the Pawpatch Recruit token, or the well, they could block the regular Pawpatch Recruit with events. Okay, it looks like our opponent really in the tank about what to do here. Opponent, or maybe they've just given up and they've closed Alt F forward, closed off their app in their phone if they're playing mobile. Do you all play mobile? I don't like playing games on my phone. I don't know what it is. It just feels like... Oh, okay. They actually just left. Alright, well, GG. 97%. Oh my goodness. The numbers are going up. I'm happy because the past like 2 days, I feel like I've been trying to climb. And I feel like for some reason we're climbing these last like couple percent faster than the previous like 4%. Okay, opponent goes first. Not exactly what you want to see, but hey, we will take it. We have the triple Pawpatch Recruit start, which is not bad if they're playing lots of spot removal, but if they're playing enough spot removal, I think we still lose. That's the one downside. I think we start out on the Valley Mightcaller, because you don't get Pawpatch Recruit value if you play it first, because there's nothing to put counters on, and you don't get Valley Mightcaller value if you play it second. So I think we just run out double Pawpatch Recruit, and we get 2 counters on our Mightcaller. There's an argument to playing out the Beastcaller and then following up with like 3 Pawpatch Recruits, but because this card I've kind of gone back and forth on. Again, decks are meta dependent. This feels like a very like meta dependent card. Well, it's also just like, it's so good if it gets to stick around, but the problem is it dies so often because it grows whenever you cast a creature spell, and then if it gets to die instead of being exiled, you get to put its counters on something else. Okay, enough rambling. Recruits in action. Sure. We're gonna have a massive Valley Mightcaller, but they could trade off both their creatures to deal with it. But I don't think they'll do that. Do we swing in with everything? The scary thing about these Gruul decks is they can kill really fast because they have 1 mana give double strike, and they get extra turns with, or extra combats with fear of missing out. We will chunk them this turn, and then next turn perhaps we'll... Okay, we'll actually just remove their board. Next turn we'll try and go in for a bunch. I don't know. There is an argument to not swinging in because they could have traded that, or like them trading their stuff off, but they're assembling Delirium. That's not good. Alright, I think I could Simulacrum, give one of these things 2 counters, and then swing in. Or Wait, I could have just Keen-Eyed Curator ate up their Delirium. That would have actually been really good. Artifact, creature, enchantment, sorcery. And then I would have had Delirium for my Keen-Eyed Curator. Well, next turn we can get Delirium with Keen-Eyed Curator and swing in as a 7/7 Trampler. It's got like a Delirium-esque ability in the sense that if you exile 4 or more card types with its ability here, it's +4/+4 and trample. Ooh, the opponent's stealing our plan here. Okay. They can stop one of our exiles. They need to stop the sorcery one, I think. But hopefully the opponent doesn't realize that. That's not what I wanted. So we can just respond by exiling it again. Okay, the opponent didn't do it. I was trying to click on the artifact creature, but it's fine. No more Delirium. I will take your Delirium. Is this actually the secret to the Gruul Delirium matchup? Is if you just have enough graveyard hate? Opponent? We can just do it again. Swing, 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 swing. Do we wait a turn to swing in with the Pawpatch Recruits? How much damage are we missing out if we do that? I think it's worth swinging in. We lose 1 or 2. The hope is next turn we just kill them anyways. Is there any way for them to deal with our Keen-Eyed Curator? I don't think so. Because they can't activate Delirium on their own Keen-Eyed Curator, so they can't like fight spell or anything like that. And red has damage-based removal, so it's hard to deal with it that way. Wow, we just won by Keen-Eyed Curating before they did. You don't get to do the 7 or like the activate all the different card types super often, but when you do, it's very satisfying. Beastie Beatdown. Or just make the Curator massive. The only problem is if the opponent has like a threaten effect, which would steal our creature, and then they gain control of it, but usually they don't. I don't think I've ran into a threaten effect in the past 100 games or something. All right, GG. 98%. Why? We just gained 1% after each match. What? All right, well, that is going to do it for this deck. Hopefully you enjoyed. Again, I want to say huge shout out to Mythic Mike, who came up with this list. I will link them in the description. It will probably also be the pinned comment in the comment section, I guess you would say. They also always put out these kind of like, I would say they usually make aggro decks, and they are usually playing in like high numbered mythic or in numbered mythic. Very kind of competitive, a bit passionate, I would say, kind of content creator. So if that sounds interesting to you, I feel like I'm obligated to recommend their channel. I don't know how they keep coming up with these kind of very like competitive lists. It's just I'm not very good at making decks, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, at the same time as complimenting Mythic Mike. So anyways, that's the deck overall. After the games, we ended 33-21 with a 61% win rate. So really, frankly, quite a good mono green deck here, but I'd say, you know, get in while the meta lasts. The meta can shift if a tournament shows up and there's something that somebody finds out that like changes the decks. And then obviously we're going to be having a new set coming out here in, I don't actually know when the set releases, but previews started today, so there will be a new set that will shake up standard. In terms of the deck, if I had any like feedback for the deck or thoughts on the deck, I don't know if I should be the one to change cards, because again, I'm not the best at making decks. But one thing I was thinking about is this deck sometimes can have some kind of awkward matches where there's kind of a board stall. I feel like this deck doesn't have the best ways of breaking a board stall, because we don't really have any like reoccurring value. We really just need to like top deck a feral encounter so we can maybe get rid of one of their blockers and then squeak in an attack for enough damage. So, well, if I would say like maybe like an Innkeeper's Talent could fit in to try and like fix that. Also, in terms of lands, the one of Crawling Barrens can be nice, but I think green, it's such a color pip dependent or like color. So there might be an argument to cutting out the Crawling Barrens. Again, I like this man land, though I think maybe even Standard has moved to the point where like spending 4 mana to get a 2/2 is just like a really bad rate for a man land. So maybe Crawling Barrens isn't it in terms of the man lands if you're going to play a man land. But again, having like a colorless pip can be a little bit of a detriment. Besides that, I don't know what to say about the deck besides it beat even my expectation for the deck. As I said, I didn't really expect this deck to perform. So I was like, you know what, I'll try it. And then I'll get down to the answer of whether or not this deck is the truth. And well, I guess the deck is the truth. So that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice morning, evening, night, afternoon, wherever and whenever you're watching. Take care of yourself. Ciao.